Ladies and gentlemen, if we are talking about smart cities and sustainable cities, of course, we also have to talk about architecture. So therefore, I'm very much looking forward to introduce our next keynote speaker. He's a Jordanian architect, designer, and artist. He was ranked amongst the top 45 most influential architects of the Middle East in 2018. A sustainability enthusiast and activist, he is the founder and design director at his architecture and interior design firm Hanna Salameh Design, based in Amman, Jordan, that designs high-efficient green projects internationally. We are very happy to have him with us today. Please welcome Hanna Salameh.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me with you today. It's an honor and a pleasure. It's actually my first time in Vienna, and I'm very happy to be here in this beautiful, beautiful city. I think before I start, I have to address a very big, important issue that I see on the faces of almost every person in Vienna that meets me. I'm a man. Apparently, everyone that saw my name on the program assumed I would be a woman, so I feel like I have to clarify that. Hanna is an Arabic name short for Yohanna, which comes from the Bible. It's Johannes, it's John the Baptist, basically. So here I am today with you today. Thank you for having me. I'm actually not a fan of standing still. Can I have a microphone, please, to move around and maybe dance for you a little bit? Thank you. Hello? Yeah, ooh, it's loud. I want you to take a moment and imagine if I tell you that we can build bridges, parks, and public spaces for free. These elements in our cities not only shape our cities, they create our identities, they create our spaces, and they highly affect our use of our cities and our mental health and our spaces and affect our overall lives. But these features and these important assets often become a burden on our countries to build and to run. So we thought, as architects, is there a way for us to change the way we think about these spaces and to find a way to think of them differently, design them differently, and maybe create something of an opportunity that improves our cities without them continuing to be a burden for us? This building played a very big role in why I became a green architect today. This is actually an ancient castle in the eastern desert of my home country, Jordan. It's called Qasr al-Khirrani. And of course, this is thousands of years old, so you can imagine this building does not have any technology. I first went to visit this building when I was a child, I was a teenager, and it was a very hot summer day. And I walked in and I was very surprised to see that the space was air conditioned. But of course, there's no technology, there's no air conditioning in this space. So it really got me thinking, like, how was this possible? And I kept asking around. And I was then told for the first time that people back in the day knew how to work with environments around their buildings, to work with wind, to work with the sun, to design buildings that actually interact with that environment, to cool themselves down, to heat themselves up, and to really be very comfortable, happy places for us to be in. And that fascinated me. You can only imagine that became a source of passion for me to want to learn about this further and to see how we can apply this today. Surely, if we were able to do this thousands of years ago, then today with the modern technology that we have, we should be able to go way further away from what was done in the past. So we started learning a lot from that, and my team and I in our company base all of our modern designs on these ancient ideas and thoughts from the past. This project we completed several years ago in Amman, my home city, and it's actually the first net zero energy bill house in Jordan. It's a house that runs on zero bills, basically. So you live there, you're not paying for electricity, you're not paying for diesel, heating, cooling, it's all for free. And it was done through, again, the same ancient methods that were used before, by understanding nature, by understanding the sun's movement, the wind, and all these different elements, and on how we can work with architecture to work with nature, not against it. I mean, architecture essentially is a sin. We're hurting our environment just by building, but there are ways of doing it that don't have to harm our environment, or at least reduce our harm to the environment. So this looks like a very simple building, but it was actually shaped by the movement of the sun. It was shaped by the movement of the wind. And we used our intuition, but also used very advanced technology to model the energy performance of this building, to model the sun's movement. So for example, you have 100% full natural lighting in this home, even in the winter when it's on a gloomy day. And this was all modeled. And it uses the sun for heating and for cooling in the different seasons. It also was a very important opportunity for us to break one very big myth in the world of green design, that green buildings have to cost more than a normal building. I'm happy to tell you that this building cost exactly the same as the same size of house in Amman, but it has a zero energy bill. And the way it was done is what we're trying to prove, that it's not about putting expensive systems, it's not about investing a lot, it's really about shaping the building to work with its environment and to offer that solution. We also worked very efficiently with the materials. A lot of people talk about green design and they think only about the running costs, but also the construction of it has to be conscious, and we have to save on the materials. This is the first time in my country where the concrete, which is our normal building material, is actually exposed. First of all, it's waterproof, so it's the visual look, it's the structure, and it's the waterproofing, so it does everything all in one. So we saved a lot on materials, and that's how we also managed to offset the cost of it. So from there, we started thinking that we can take this onto much bigger projects, onto many different ideas. And just as an example, we are now building the next zero energy bill house in Jordan, which is a much larger, it's a huge mansion. But again, by using the same concepts, you can take it from a small project and start growing and growing into different sizes and scales. The interesting part is that this is not only for one location in the world. This can be anywhere. And we've designed projects in many different parts of the world, from North America to Europe to Africa and to Asia. And in this case, we were designing a project in South Sudan, in Africa. And here we're looking at the same principles. It's a matter of using the same sun that is there in the world, wind and everything. And we try to always learn from every country that we design in and the cultures that we work with. So this is a typical mud hut that the locals there have been building with for many, many years. And we took our inspiration from this building to designing our modern large building, which is a very large-scale building. But again, we're using the straw roof, we're using the simple mud walls to create shading on the building in the summer and to keep the building cool with very minimal costs by using local materials and by celebrating the culture and the way that that country builds in general in there. This is an example again from my home country, and I'm trying to show you different projects just to show you how different the scale can become and how hidden the green design features can become, because I've seen a lot of people believing that green buildings have to look a certain way, they have to be very rigid, very boring, and to be honest, in many aspects. But this is a disguised building, so it's a modern building, it's a hotel that we designed in my home city. But it's designed again with the same principles. It saves all its running energy and does that quite in a disguised way. The cubes are tilted to face the right direction of the sun because the site was off axis, and so we tried to find a way to shift back and face the sun in the direction that we need it. We're also applying this on much bigger scales. So this is a conference center that is quite a large space. It's designed to have full natural lighting in every single space of it. It makes use of natural ventilation and has a lot of greenery as well in it as part of the green architecture in there. This is another eco lodge. So we do a lot of eco hotels, and in this case, we're inspired again by the local architecture. So the buildings are actually built by the local people. The definition of an eco-hotel or an eco-lodge is a hotel that's not just environmentally friendly, but also works with the local communities to build and operate it. And here we are working with the local community to actually build the facility itself and also be a green building. This is another hospital that we completed in Morocco, and this is an example where we were not able to use natural ventilation inside. The building itself has this double glass facade that takes all the heat of the sun and uses it for heating and for cooling in a very different manner. So I know this is a lot of projects, but I'm just trying to tell you that there are many different ways of how a building can be green passively, and it can also look very different. And you can see from our project that every building is a different style and reflects it. And I think this is the most extreme difference in it. This is a museum that we recently designed. Again, here, the idea of the architecture was to be green, was to create shading, and was to respond to the environment. But also, we never let green design be our goal. For us, designing green is as basic as designing a well-functional building. So being green is just on the back of our heads. We do that by default. In this case, we are working on challenging the artists and creating 3D spaces that are tilted so that we inspire art that is not just 2D. We're looking at 3D experiences and walking through in a green and sustainable building. What we learned from all of this is if we work with nature instead of against nature, we actually get a win-win solution. And we believe that if this is a philosophy that applies honestly to every industry in the world, not just to architecture, not just to design. I believe that if people look for win-win solutions, then we can build a much brighter future for ourselves. And so we thought, if we're able to do this with our own projects and our own buildings, is there a way to take this to a whole other level to influence bigger problems and older problems that we face in the world? And that's where the question came, can we now make it a win-win-win scenario? So we said, it's our project, we said in the environment, what if we go further and we look at our cities, we look at our governments, we look at our economies and try to implement that thought into our, daily lives. My home city, Amman, is a great city, but we also face a lot of problems, some of which you also face, some of which are unique to us. One of our biggest problems in Jordan, or in Amman in particular, is the lack of public parks. And as you know, public parks are extremely important. They're a necessity for life, in my personal opinion. And unfortunately, they're being treated as luxuries in our case, only because of our economic situations that are quite tight and quite tough. So my team and I were thinking, is there a way to use our knowledge and our ability in green design and passive design to solve this problem without waiting for our economic situation to improve? Because we think that's going to take quite a long time. One of the biggest challenges of building a park is finding the land. And therefore, we identified a great opportunity of this train line that crosses through Jordan from north to south as a free land that's available there. But then we thought, okay, now we have the land. How can we build this park without costing the government a single penny, neither to build nor to run? And so we came up with an idea. We looked at all the private businesses that exist there who spend so much money on CSR, on marketing, all these different things. So that money, it's money they want to spend. It's not money we're taking away from anyone. It's money they really want to spend. And so we thought we can take that and actually build the park with it, and by giving them some exposure in return for that. And then we came up with ideas of how to actually make it sustain itself, so that we also, again, don't have to take money from the government, not a single penny, actually. So the idea here was to build a green park that keeps the train, and actually we proposed turning the old train into a tram that can be used for transportation, but we build things around it that actually utilize this free space that crosses through the heart of our city in there. And of course, one of the most important things is to actually include modes of transportation. So aside from the train, we also added a cycling path and a lot of pedestrian paths as well. And then around that, we started adding many different features. So green space, entertainment areas for all demographics of our city. But then we started plugging in these small elements that start generating money for the park. So for example, there's this guy who already is there and he sells pottery on the land. We keep him there, we charge him a little bit of rent, so he starts bringing in some cash to the park and starts part of funding it. We also added these small booths that allow the local community to rent it out again to start their own businesses, whether it's a small coffee shop or handmade products or whatever they want to sell in it, in there. And then we have these slightly larger booths that are rented out to the big players. So we're looking at banks, telecom companies, whatever, these big guys who can afford to pay significant rent to have a small branch in the park. And this brings the major revenue for the park to actually cover its maintenance and running costs in general. And we also, by the way, I didn't mention this, the line is 26 kilometers long crossing through Amman, the city. So it's quite a very, very long park, so we have plenty of space to work with. And here the idea is that part of that could also be rented out as agricultural land for the local community to either grow their own vegetables and fruits or to sell them in like a farmer's market that happens in the site itself, also generating rent money for the park. We also, of course, use a lot of solar panels to cover the energy consumption of the park, but also to export that to the grid and actually again become a source of revenue. So this is the theme. We have a million ideas inside the park that generate money, and overall we did our calculations. The whole running cost of the park is covered by the park itself, and actually there's excess that comes out of it. So our vision for the future is to have this nice green streak that crosses through our concrete city and become this neighborhood park that's quite long and accessible to everyone in a walking distance, let's say, in the areas that live around it. I'm going to share a big secret with you today, and I'm happy to announce that we actually got approval from the city to build this park, and we are already halfway through to making it happen. So I'm very happy to report that with you. Yeah. Thank you. In closing, I think unless Elon Musk figures out very soon how to take us to Mars and to really have us live there, we have to realize that all we have is this one beautiful, precious planet. And I think it's our responsibility on an individual and global level to really take care of it, to understand that it's all we have and that we all have to play a role, whether small or big, in maintaining its prosperity, its positivity, and its peace. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for being with us today, Hanna, Salameh. I really hope you'll have enough time in Vienna to explore the city a little bit, maybe get inspired by the city's architecture a little bit. So thank you so much for being with us today.